Hey, what's up, everybody? Going to do a tribute reaction, man. A tribute reaction to a great pioneer of the classic rock movement, Little Richard. Man, I just woke up, man. It's what is it, 5:30 or something like that? Just woke up and I heard that Little Richard had passed, and I checked my messages on my Patreon, and Akachita, one of my patrons, had sent me the notification of Little Richard's passing, and also too, he had also sent me a couple of links that I could probably maybe do a reaction for. So I'm definitely going to follow that, man. Akachita, thank you very much. What I'm going to do is there are 4 songs that we're going to do reactions to, and then in the middle of the songs, what I want to do is I want to, instead of focusing so much on the song content, I'll focus on the artist himself, man. There's a Rolling Stone article here that I want to read as well, and so Akachita, thank you very much, man. He sent me the links to the songs and also the article. So what I'll do is in between song reactions, I'll read pieces of that particular article and go that way. So man, let's pop off this tribute, starting with Long Tall Sally / Tutti Frutti. All right, a great pioneer has left us. Long Tall Sally, Tutti Frutti, Little Richard. Let's get it.
Now, here's that real solid man of rock and roll, Little Richard and Long Tall Sally.
Look at that smile.
Gonna tell Aunt Mary about Uncle John. He came to have the misery, but he having a lot of fun, oh baby. Yeah, baby. Ooh, baby. Having me some fun.
For sexy sex.
Yeah. Well, Long Tall Sally, she's the biggest piece of guy. Everything that Uncle John need, oh baby. Yeah, baby. Ooh, baby. Having me some fun tonight. Yeah. Well, I saw Uncle John with bald head Sally. He saw Aunt Mary coming and he ducked back in the alley, oh baby. Yeah, baby. Ooh, baby. Having me some fun tonight. Yeah.
That's the way to play the sax.
Well, Long Tall Sally, she's the biggest piece of guy. Everything that Uncle John need, oh baby. Yeah, baby. Ooh, baby. Having me some fun tonight. Yeah. Well, I saw Uncle John with bald head Sally. He saw Aunt Mary coming and he ducked back in the alley, oh baby. Yeah, baby. Ooh, baby. Having me some fun tonight. Yeah. We're gonna have some fun tonight. We're gonna have some fun tonight. Ooh, have some fun tonight. Everything's alright. Have some fun. Have me some fun tonight.
Hey, you want another? You get it. And you're going to meet the winners of the Harvest Moon Contest, Jimmy and Jovita, dancing to Little Richard and Tutti Frutti.
Rock, bam, boom, bam, 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 tutti frutti, oh Rudy, tutti frutti, oh Rudy, tutti frutti, oh Rudy, tutti frutti, oh Rudy, tutti frutti, oh Rudy. Rock, bam, boom, bam, 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 bam. I got a girl named Sue. She knows just what to do. I got a girl named Sue. She knows just what to do. She rock to the west, but she's the gal that I love best. To the booty, on Rudy. 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 To the booty, on Rudy.
See, it wasn't just about the British invasion. Had her heroes here too.
Got a gal named Daisy. She almost drives me crazy. She knows how to love me, yes indeed. Boy, you don't know what she do to me. To the booty, oh Rudy. 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 Oh, bum, got a gal named Daisy. She almost drives me crazy. Got a gal named Daisy. She almost drives me crazy. She knows how to love me, yes indeed. Boy, you don't know what she do to me. To the booty, oh Rudy. 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 Oh, bam, bam, boom.
Wow. What an entertainer, man. You talk about personalities that are larger than life, that are magnetic and polarizing, that can just arrest you and make you smile, make you laugh, make you dance, make you do whatever it is that's usually not within your comfort zone. That is the entertainer, Little Richard. Fantastic, man. Fantastic. Yeah. You know, I was thinking, I mentioned the British Invasion series. When I first started my channel, I also had the intention too of doing kind of like, I called it the History of Rock and Roll series. That's where we're focusing more on our great acts from the mainlands, not all about the damn British invasion. So, you know, we got our Little Richards, we got our Chuck Berrys, you know, we got our Elvises, we got our Jerry Lee Lewises, you know, so those great pioneers. I just finished doing a Buddy Holly quad, and so it just kind of reminded me that, man, you know, I should look into this a little bit further. At first, the interest was just all for the British invasion, you know, and so I was just kind of saying to myself, oh, okay, well, I'll just focus on the British invasion, and then maybe down the road we'll see about doing kind of like what I'm calling a History of Rock and Roll series, where it's basically just, you know, on the American side. So we'll see how that goes. It's still up in the air, but here we are, man, another great pioneer that we're losing. So, yeah, man, not too many of them left, you know. Let's get acquainted with Little Richard, man, who he was, how the music inspired him, how he came to be. And as I said, I'm going to introduce the man, focus on the artist more than the song, and in between the actual reactions of the songs, I'm going to read bits of the Rolling Stone article that Akachita sent us. So, man, starting with a little bio intro of Little Richard. Richard Wayne Penniman, December 5th, 1932 to May 9th, 2020. Better known as Little Richard, was an American singer-songwriter and musician, an influential figure in popular music. Richard's most celebrated work dates from the mid-50s, when his dynamic music and charismatic showmanship laid the foundation for rock and roll, leading him to be given the nickname the innovator, the originator, and the architect of rock and roll. Characterized by his frenetic piano playing and raspy singing voice, Richard's music also played a key role in the formation of other popular music genres, including soul and funk. He influenced numerous singers and musicians across musical genres from rock to hip-hop, and his music helped shape rhythm and blues for generations to come. Wow. Richard was honored by many institutions. He was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as part of his first group of inductees in 1986. He was also inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame He was the recipient of a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Recording Academy and a Lifetime Achievement Award from the Rhythm and Blues Foundation. In 2015, Richard received a Rhapsody and Rhythm Award from the National Museum of African American Music for his key role in the formation of popular music genres and helping to bring an end to the racial divide on the music charts and in concert in the mid-1950s, changing American culture significantly. Sorry, man, that was one long-ass sentence. Holy cow. No breaks, nothing. Anyway, Tutti Frutti was included in the National Recording Registry of the Library of Congress in 2010, which stated that his unique vocalizing over the irresistible beat announced a new era in music. Death. Little Richard's death on May 9, 2020 was announced by his son, Danny Penniman, who said his death was related to bone cancer. Okay, man, so let's just do a quick little read on this Rolling Stone article. I'm just gonna read it in little bits and pieces. So we'll just do one or two paragraphs here, and then we'll get on to our next song, man. So, sorry, I'm just losing my, there we go, okay. Rolling Stone article by David Brown. The headline said, Little Richard, founding father of rock who broke musical genres, dead at 87. Little Richard, a founding father of rock and roll, whose fervent shrieks, flamboyant garb, and joyful gender-bending persona embodied the spirit and sound of that new art form, died Saturday. He was 87. The musician's son, Danny Jones Penniman, confirmed the pioneer's death to Rolling Stone, adding that the cause of death was cancer. Starting with Tutti Frutti in '56, Little Richard cut a series of unstoppable hits. Long Tall Sally, Rip It Up that same year, Lucille in '57, Good Golly Miss Molly in '58, driven by his simple, pumping piano, gospel-influenced vocal exclamations, and sexually charged lyrics. And okay, this is the actual writer speaking. Quote, I heard Little Richard and Jerry Lee Lewis, and that was it. No, sorry, that was from Elton John. That's a quote from Elton John. Elton John told Rolling Stone in '73, I didn't ever want to be anything else. I'm more of a Little Richard stylist than a Jerry Lee Lewis, I think. Jerry Lee is a very intricate piano player and very skillful, but Little Richard is more of a pounder, unquote. That's Elton John. Although he never hit the top 10 again after '58, Little Richard's influence was massive. The Beatles recorded several of his songs, including Long Tall Sally, and Paul McCartney's singing on those tracks, and the Beatles' own I'm Down, paid tribute to Little Richard's shredded throat style. His songs became part of the rock and roll canon, covered over the decades by everyone from the Everly Brothers, Kinks, Creedence Clearwater Revival to Elvis Costello and the Scorpions. Elvis popularized rock and roll. Steven Van Zandt tweeted after the news broke, Chuck Berry was the storyteller, but Richard was the archetype, unquote. All right, man. So that is where we're going to stop, pause, and we're going to check out our next track, and that being Lucille. Wow, lots of high praise from so many notable people. All right, Little Richard, Lucille. Let's get it. Look at the footwork.
Lucy, not in sight. I asked my friends about her, but all they did was tight. Lucy, please come back where you belong. I've been good to you, baby. Please don't leave me alone.
He's not jumping on the piano this time.
I woke up this morning, Lucy was not in sight. I asked my friends about her, but all they did was tight. Lucy, please come back where you belong. I've been good to you, baby. Please don't leave me alone. Lucy, baby, satisfy my heart. Lucy, baby, satisfy my heart. Lucy, please come back where you belong. Lucy, please come back where you belong. I've been good to you, baby. Please don't leave me alone. I woke up this morning, Lucy was not in sight. I asked my friends about her, but all they did was tight. Lucy, please come back where you belong. I've been good to you, baby. Please don't leave me alone.
Sexy sauce.
I woke up this morning, Lucy was not in sight. I asked my friends about her, but all they did was tight. Lucy, please come back where you belong. I've been good to you, baby. Please don't leave me alone. Lucy, baby, satisfy my heart. Lucy, baby, satisfy my heart. I believe I went to baby. They gave you such a wonderful start.
Excellent. The only thing they needed there was a little bit of the crowd making noise and dancing, but hey, great performance, man. Lucille, released in 57. I believe that's my mom's favorite song from him, Lucille. Yo, man. Little Richard. This guy, you talk about being timeless and always being ever present in my upbringing. Let me tell you, holy cow, always around. And I knew of Little Richard long before I ever laid eyes on him. You know what I mean? And when I finally saw who Little Richard was, I'm like, oh my gosh, man, he looks like one of my uncles, you know? Anyway, hey, yeah. Great memories growing up and always being exposed to Little Richard, man. So, let us read a little piece of the Rolling Stone interview. The Rolling Stone article, rather. Where was I, man? So, okay, I started with the Rolling Stone article. And, yeah, Richard was the archetype. So, I'm down. They're getting into his origins here. So let's read a bit of that. Born Richard Wayne Penniman, December 5th, 1932, in Macon, Georgia, he was one of 12 children and grew up around uncles who were preachers. Quote, I was born in the slums. My daddy sold whiskey, bootleg whiskey, he told Rolling Stone in 1970. Although he sang in a nearby church, his father, Bud, wasn't supportive of his son's music and accused him of being gay, resulting in Penniman leaving home at 13 and moving in with a white family in Macon. But music stayed with him. One of his boyhood friends was Otis Redding, and Penniman heard R&B, blues, and country while working at a concession stand at the Macon City Auditorium. After performing at the TikTok Club in Macon and winning a local talent show, Penniman landed his first record deal with RCA in '51. He became Little Richard when he was about 15 years old, when the R&B and blues worlds were filled with acts like Little Esther and Little Milton. He had also grown tired with people mispronouncing his last name as Penny Man. He learned his distinctive piano style from Esquerita, a South Carolina singer and pianist who also wore his hair in a high black pompadour. For the next 5 years, Little Richard's career advanced only fitfully. Fairly tame, conventional singles he cut for RCA and other labels didn't chart. Quote, "When I first came along, I never heard any rock and roll," he told Rolling Stone in 1990. "When I started singing rock and roll, I sang it a long time before I presented it to the public because I was afraid they wouldn't like it. I never heard nobody do it, and I was scared," unquote. By '56, he was washing dishes at a Greyhound station in Macon, a job he had first taken a few years earlier after his father was murdered, and Little Richard had to support his family. By then, only one track he'd cut, Little Richard's Boogie, hinted at the musical tornado to come. Quote, "I put that little thing in it," he told Rolling Stone in 1970 of the way he tweaked with his gospel roots. "I always did have that thing, but I didn't know what to do with that little thing I had," unquote. During this low point, he sent a tape with a rough version of a body novelty song called Tutti Frutti to Specialty Records in Chicago. He came up with the song's famed chorus at Wap Bapaloo Bapa Wap Bam Boom while bored washing dishes. He also co-wrote Long Tall Sally while working that same job. By coincidence, label owner and producer Art Root was in search of a lead singer for some tracks he wanted to cut in New Orleans, and Penniman's howling delivery fit the bill. In September '55, the musician cut a lyrically cleaned up version of Tutti Frutti, which became his first hit, peaking at 17 on the pop charts. "Tutti Frutti really started the races being together," he told Rolling Stone in 1990. "From the get-go, my music was accepted by whites," unquote. And that's where the money's at, man. All right, so let's stop there, man, and let us check out our next track, and that being Whole Lot of Shakin' Going On. Little Richard, Whole Lot of Shakin' Going On. Let's get it.
A whole lot of shaking going on. And when I sing this song, I want everybody to raise your hands. Everybody raise your hands. Come on. When I sing this song and when it gets good to you, when I say a whole lot of shaking going on, I want everybody to just shake. Don't you like to shake sometime? What we gonna do? What we gonna shake? Everybody say, well, all right. Oh, my soul. Golly, Miss Molly. Come on over, baby.
They didn't waste any time.
Can't go wrong. You ain't faking. A whole lot of shaking going on. I said, come
You're shaking it too much.
Hold on, the shaking going on. A whole lot of shaking going on. Yeah, we ain't faking. A whole lot of shaking going on. Well, just come on over, baby. Whole lot of shaking going on. A whole lot of shaking going on. Yeah, we ain't faking. A whole lot of shaking going on. Well, just shake, baby, shake. Want to shake. Woo! Yeah. A whole lot of shaking going on. Yeah, we ain't faking. A whole lot of shaking going on.
Losing appetite. Coming over, baby. Whole lot of shaking going on. I want you coming over, mama. Mama, I say you can't go wrong. We ain't faking. Whole lot of shaking going on. I say, come on over, baby. We got the chicken in the barn. Who's barn? A big old barn. I say, come on over, mama. I say you can't go wrong. Yeah. We ain't faking, whole lot of shit going on. Saxophones in the band. A man after my own heart. Nice, nice. The crowd's already saying more and more. Excellent, man. Hey, what a great entertainer. All of that energy. Wow. Talk about pioneers laying a great foundation for us, man. Little Richard, Chuck Berry, Jerry Lee, Buddy Holly, all of these great pioneers. They definitely, it's got to be some sort of a revival and recognizing their contributions, man. Going back to the roots of it all. So, hey, Sorry, where did I leave off, man? Yeah, okay, so kind of got into his origins. Yeah, right. From the get-go, my music was accepted by whites. So, and this part is getting more into his hits here. So let's look at that, man. Yeah, 2 paragraphs. So, its follow-up, Long Tall Sally, hit number 6, becoming the highest placing hit of his career. For just over a year, the musician released one relentless and arresting smash after another. From Long Tall Sally to Slippin' and Slidin', Little Richard's hits, a glorious mix of boogie, gospel, and jump blues, produced by Robert Bumps Blackwell, sounded like he never stood still. With his trademark pompadour and makeup, which he once said he started wearing so that he would be less threatening while playing white clubs, he was instantly on the level of Elvis Presley, Jerry Lee Lewis, and other early rock icons, complete with rabid fans and mobbed concerts. That's what the kids in America were excited about, he told Rolling Stone in 1970. They don't want the falsehood, they want the truth. Unquote. As with Presley, Lewis, and other contemporaries, Penniman also was cast in early rock and roll movies like Don't Knock the Rock in '56 and The Girl Can't Help It in '57. In a sign of how segregated the music business and radios were at the time, though, Pat Boone's Milquist Toast covers of Tutti Frutti and Long Tall Sally, both also released in '56, charted as well if not higher than Richard's own versions. Boone's Tutti Frutti hit number 12, surpassing Little Richard's by 9 slots. Penniman later told Rolling Stone that he made sure to sing Long Tall Sally faster than Tutti Frutti so that Boone couldn't copy him as much. Unquote. All right, man. Segregation on all levels, man. Well, hey, you're an entertainer, you're trying to make it in the business, you see an opportunity. If you're going to mimic and copy a little bit and not get in a whole heap of trouble for it, go for it, I guess. That's just how it goes, man. Yeah, back then too, ripping off intellectual property wasn't punished as much, I don't believe. So, in a case of Little Richard being a black man and then being covered by a white man, even with that version being a little bit more successful, there was no talk about, royalty shares or anything like that. And, I imagine that maybe the song was not licensed properly. I got to get more into that back in the 50s, how it was, because it seemed that between the 50s, 60s, and some of the 70s, some songs would come out by the original artist, and then almost immediately, if not just a short year later or whatnot, another rendition would come out of that same song. A really good example of that is A Little Help from My Friends. The Beatles version came out one year, and I believe the year after that, Joe Cocker's version came out, and so it's all of these different things that makes me wonder, especially in the 50s, there probably weren't a lot of consequence for that. Let me know about that. That's an area that I really have to research more. So many decades later, you see Led Zeppelin getting pummeled for what a lot of people are saying was just basically collective sharing. But the fact that Led Zeppelin was so successful, everybody's like, hey, we live in a world now where all we have to do is just basically sue somebody and we can become wealthy. Of course, let's do it. So I know that's a slippery slope and a lot of people are going to have opinions about that. But this is a tribute, so I'm going to leave it there. All right. Yeah, so we read more about his hits. So what we'll do, we'll read the last part after we finish our very, very last track here, man. And that being King of Rock and Roll. Little Richard, King of Rock and Roll. Let's get it.
And it came to pass that in the year of rock and superstars, King Richard returned from exile to claim his throne. And from around the world the cry was...
Remember Richard the Lionheart going on his great escapade and finally making a triumphant return?
Good golly, Miss Molly, go and tell everybody, every Johnny, Joe, and Jack that the king is back. We're gonna read it, deed it, gonna let it all burn, gonna have a celebration for the king's return. I'm the king of rock and roll, whoa, the king of rock and roll. Now I'm gonna sing and shout, it ain't no doubt about it, I'm the king of rock and roll. Tom Jones say the dirty and rough, but I can beat him shiner with my king size stuff. I'm the king of rock and roll, whoa, the king of rock and roll. Well, I'm gonna sing and shout, it ain't no doubt about it, I'm the king of rock and roll. Ike and Tina Turner got an earthquake sound, but I'm the man from Macon and I'm gonna put him down. Elvis Presley, have you heard the news? I'm gonna walk over your blue suede shoes, 'cause I'm the king of rock and roll. I'm the king of rock and roll. Well, I'm gonna sing and shout, it ain't no doubt about it, I'm the king of rock and roll. 1, 2, and a 3 dog night. I bet your bog is much bigger than your bite. Ow! Breathe clear water, don't you know you're on a Tesla and it's totally rock and roll along. Aretha Franklin is the queen of soul, but who wants to be the queen when you're the king of rock and roll? I'm the king of rock and roll, oh, the king of rock and roll. Well, I'm gonna sing and shout, it ain't no doubt about it, I'm the king of rock and roll. I'm the king of rock and roll, oh, the king of rock and roll. Well, I'm gonna sing and shout, it ain't no doubt about it, I'm the king of rock and roll. I'm the king of rock and roll, oh, the king of rock and roll. Well, ain't the sing and shout,
Charming lyrics. Wow, man. Yeah, this guy certainly was a force, man. And where would modern music be without the presence of Little Richard as one of the founding fathers laying that foundation for it, man? Fantastic. Where did I leave off again, man? Yeah, we were talking about his hits. And, okay, so this last portion here, yeah, there's a couple of paragraphs. It's now getting into his change of career and change of life's perspectives. Okay, yeah, so by then, the hits stopped by his own choice. After what he interpreted as signs, a plane engine that seemed to be on fire, and a dream about the end of the world and his own damnation, Penniman gave up music in 1957 and began attending the Alabama Bible School, Oakwood College, where he would eventually be ordained as a minister. When he finally cut another album in '59, the result was a gospel set called God is Real. His gospel music career floundering, Little Richard returned to secular rock in '64. Although none of the albums and singles he cut over the next decade for a variety of labels sold well, he was welcomed back by a new generation of rockers like the Rolling Stones and Bob Dylan, who used to play Little Richard's songs on the piano when he was a kid. That's Bob Dylan. When Little Richard played the Star Club in Hamburg in the early 60s, the opening act was none other than the Beatles. Quote, "We used to stand backstage at Hamburg's Star Club and watch Little Richard play," John Lennon said later. "He used to read from the Bible backstage, and just to hear him talk, we'd sit around and listen. I still love him, and he's one of the greatest," unquote. By the 70s, Little Richard was making a respectable living on the rock oldies circuit, immortalized in a searing, sweaty performance in the 1973 documentary Let the Good Times Roll. During this time, he also became addicted to marijuana and cocaine, while at the same time returned to his gospel roots. Okay, yeah, so this last part here is dealing with the social barriers that he broke down, and also more info leading up to his death. So 3 paragraphs. Social barriers. Little Richard also dismantled sexual stereotypes in rock and roll, even if he confused many of his fans along the way. During his teen years and into his early rock stardom, his stereotypical flamboyant personality made some speculate about his sexuality, even if he had never publicly come out. But that flamboyance didn't derail his career. In the 1984 biography, The Life and Times of Little Richard, written with his cooperation, he denounced sexuality as contagious. It's not something you're born with. 11 years later, he said in an interview with Penthouse that he had been gay all my life, unquote. Later in life, he described himself as omnisexual, attracted to both men and women. But during an interview with the Christian Tide Three Angels Broadcasting Group in 2017, he denounced gay and trans lifestyles. Quote, "God, Jesus, he made men, he made women, and you've got to live the way God wants you to live. So much unnatural affection, so much of people just doing everything and don't think about God," unquote. Yet none of that seemed to damage his mystique or legend. In the 80s, he appeared in movies like Down and Out in Beverly Hills and in TV shows like Full House and Miami Vice. In 86, he was one of the 10 original inductees into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and in 93, he was awarded a Lifetime Achievement Award at the Grammys. His last known recording was in 2010, when he cut a song for a tribute album to gospel singer Dottie Rambo. Last paragraph. In the years before his death, Little Richard, who was by then based in Nashville, still performed periodically. On stage, though, the physicality of old was gone. Thanks to his hip replacement surgery in 2009, he could only perform sitting down at his piano. But his rock and roll spirit never left him. Quote, "I'm sorry I can't do it like it's supposed to be done," he told one audience in 2012. After the audience screamed back in encouragement, he said, with a very Little Richard squeal, "Oh, you're gonna make me scream like a white girl," unquote. And that is Wikipedia Song Fact Info and this Rolling Stone article about a great pioneer of modern music, of rock and roll, Little Richard. Wow. So, man, we, in a short period of time, said goodbye to Kenny Rogers. We said goodbye to Bill Withers. And now, Little Richard. Our heroes are leaving us at a rapid rate, man. If you have a chance to go out and see one of our heroes and they're still performing and they're still publicly accessible, go check them out for sure, man. Absolutely. Little Richard. Wow. What a fantastic entertainer. And condolences and love to his family and friends. So he was 87 and he died with complications of bone cancer. It's my understanding. Okay. I'll follow up and see if there's just more developing. I mean, he must have passed early this morning, in the wee hours of the morning. And I hope that he didn't suffer long. I hope that he wasn't in too much pain. So, man, what I'm going to do going forward here is with these great heroes passing, this particular tribute reaction is going to go on both my platforms, both the Classic Rock platform and also on the Beyond Classic channel. When it comes to great heroes like this passing, I think that's an exception, where it comes to that whole genre nonsense. Let's just leave that alone and just pay tribute to the great heroes. So Kenny Rogers and Bill Withers, they're on the Beyond Classic, and Little Richard is going to be on both. So, it's kind of interchangeable. I have to guard very, very closely sometimes the tributes that I do based on the genres, because there's a couple of very, very inconsiderate and ignorant people out there who immediately will jump on, oh, this isn't classic rock, this isn't this, what are you doing, what are you doing? So I don't want none of that. So I'm grateful now that we've got the Beyond Classic Rock platform, so everything else can go on that platform and we don't have these issues anymore. Yeah, so with Little Richard, he is a great example of being able to cross all of those lines. He belongs on both platforms, man. So moving forward, I'm going to continue. This is the weekend. So I've got Led Zeppelin reaction coming up. I'm also into Bob Dylan. And I'm just halfway through Highway 61 Revisited, so I'm going to complete that for Bob Dylan. And I'm going to continue with my complimentary quads as well. I believe that Rico is up. So that is my plan going forward. So I just wanted to also say that, Little Richard, man, I think that I want to look into perhaps doing some sort of history of rock and roll featuring our great pioneers of rock. Let me know if you might be interested in seeing something like that. Mainly on the American side. We've done the British invasion, so now we had our great heroes on the American side, like Little Richard. So I want to see if I can maybe do a series like that, just like with the British invasion. Let me know what you think about that. Anyways, man, I'm gonna bounce. Hope you enjoyed this reaction tribute to Little Richard, a great, great hero of modern music. And take care, and I will catch you in another reaction. Peace.